Test, test. Hey everybody, this is Dani Stern with DeucesToCrack.com, bringing you another 6 Max No Limit video. So for this series, I'm going to mix it up a little bit. I'm not going to just only do live sweats. I'm doing a live sweat now, but maybe I'm going to do, I might do some tournament videos, especially some 6 Max tournament videos now that W Coop's going on. Can do a little bit of live sweat, a little bit of hand history review. Maybe I'll review some students' work, or some Deuces Cracked. Basically some of you guys could submit some videos. So right now I got 3 2.5 zoom tables going and the 215 W Coop. I find that one of the best things about W Coop for me is not just that these tournaments all have pretty damn good value, but just the fact that a lot of them take a really long time, and I sign up for a couple of tournaments, and I'm going to be at the computer for 4 or 5 hours, even if I don't cash a tournament. It just forces me to put in a nice long cash game session, and for the most part lately, I've been doing really well playing no limit cash. Been playing a good amount of heads up lately and doing well. But seems like every time I play a tournament, I just lose. So W Coop has not gone well so far. So in the top right, Tillerman 3 bets. Pretty tough spot. He threw back kind of large, and he only has a half stack. I'm gonna call because it's him, and I have some reasons why against him I think I should call. My range on this flop for jamming when he bets is, in all honesty, probably has a lot of like the type of stuff that I have now. But there's just too many ways that he has something that he's just going to fold. I expect him to see bet his pocket pairs and fold to a raise on that board a lot. I like betting kind of small on the bottom left. My opponent doesn't have a queen probably because he checked back the turn. So it's definitely possible he actually has me beat and has an 8, but more likely is that he has a misdraw or something like 9s through jacks. Maybe I should check that river because he has a misdraw so often. That may have been a mistake by betting there on the bottom left. I went bet check bet there. I'm betting my ace king on the bottom right, even though I don't expect him to fold a pair. It's something of a value bet, especially when I have ace king with no diamond in my hand. Ace king with a diamond, a lot of time in that spot, I'll just check call. I think one of the great things about being a 6 max player playing these W cubes is, I mean, even some of the really good tournament players are I mean, this is 4 max, so it's even more extreme, are probably not quite as in tune with pre-flop game in 4 and 6 handed tables. So they do a lot more. They do a lot more of just sort of spot picking. They just think a spot feels good and they do it. I feel like they're not usually quite as grounded in sort of an overall game plan of like what hands to 3-bet in certain positions, what hands to, etc. Also, people just min raise from every position, so you can do things like call queen 5 suited in the big when they min raise the button. Now it's 3-bet, I have to fold. I'm gonna open bottom right, king 9 off with the button having somewhat nitty stats. Maxmeister is one of the better rags. So I'm going to 3-bet the king jack suited. I should have made it 52-50. I don't know why I shrunk it. Raised and confused is also one of the better rags at these stakes. Well, I like betting really small here. Even though my hand isn't like great at this point in a 3-bet pot, almost no one has ace king here ever, so the only way I'm beat is if somebody has pocket eights or king queen. I don't expect people to call too much with pocket pairs here if I bet big, so I want to make sure my bet size is kind of small, and also this is a good bet size, a balanced bet size for if when I have something, when I have nothing, when I have ace queen or something like that. I kind of like going bet check bet here. My opponent can definitely have king, and also in the top left, I'm going to call. My opponent made a very small 3-bet, and there's an ante, and I'm in position. I think calling queen 7 suited there is correct. If he had made it a normal 3-bet size, I would just fold. But the fact is, your opponent, when he 3-bets tiny, and then is also very likely to bet less than half pot on the flop, what he's doing there, and I'm not saying that betting small on the flop is bad in his spot, but it also ends up. I expect raising confused to fold a lot here, but I think I have to see bet, or I have to value bet. He just has something like 9s or 10s here, like always. I think he's going to fold a lot, but he also probably knows that I know that that's what he has, so he might decide to make a hero call with 9s here. This is just one of those spots in 6-max where you and your opponent kind of just both know what you have, and it happens a lot when you're playing against good players in 6-max games sometimes. I don't know about a lot, but it happens. And those can sometimes be some of the toughest spots to play. So back to what I was saying about the 4-max table. Yeah, so all that tiny raising, the tiny betting on the flops, it's just going to increase the value of position for me. And top left, I check called twice with queen 8. That's a spot where I kind of like just going check call, check fold with my hand. But obviously I'm never, or he doesn't really expect me to ever check fold an ace. So I think my range is, protected in that spot. Let's see what he had. He had 9-8. Probably should, probably not that bad or anything. He gets me to fold all my king high, jack 10, stuff like that on the turn, so small bet's not that bad. It's worth noting though when that happens that the guy's he's going to be willing to make some bluffs with no equity in that sort of spot. Bottom left, I c-bet my jack 8 suited on this board. Gonna check back the ace. Don't think it hit him. Excuse me. I don't think it hit him too often. I don't think he check calls an ace high that often under the small blind, but I do think it significantly lessens the chance that he calls with worse on the turn. So I'm willing to give a free card to some draws or whatever he may have. And I don't think there's much value in a bet here. He could definitely have something like 9s. Obviously, the kickers don't play my 8. Just hoping he calls it like 6s or something would be, or that hand is a little bit optimistic to be value betting the jack 8 on the bottom there. Top right, under the gun raises here. I definitely could 3-bet, isolate with 10s. I'm going to call. Under the gun +1. Obviously, you got to have a bit of a tighter 3-betting range. Top left, 3-betting to 5-bet is definitely an option. If we were a little bit deeper, I would kind of like that. But I don't think there's that much room for him to 4-bet fold, so I'm just going to call on top left. Obviously, 7-4-4 is a strong flop for sixes, so I check call. Going to check call again, probably, unless he does something crazy. I don't really think I can have much to be bluffing with here, but I still think I should bet. Kind of small in the river. He might call with ace high. He might call with deuces, threes, fives. He definitely can have a better hand, though. I think maybe I should have bet bigger. Maybe I should have bet like 700, make it look like I can have potentially something like ace five, getting him to fold a bigger ace. My numbers for this tournament are extremely crazy. My 3-bet is 30% over 47 hands. Well, I guess whenever you're playing four-handed, it's going to be pretty standard. Simsucks and I have been going at it quite a bit in this table. I 3-bet him like the first like 4 consecutive times from the big blind. I'm betting the king 5 as a value bet. I expect him to check call ace high quite a bit on this flop. He obviously does have something like sixes through nines. He could possibly have those. He probably 3-bets nines pre. I'm going to call the check raise. I beat all of his bluffs. I have backdoor flush draw, and it's a very dry board where I don't think he's check raising much more than maybe some strong jacks. Six of Hearts is not a great card. I'm just going to fold. Not sure about that king 5 hand. I can call again on certain cards. Any club, probably. Any king 5 club. He sometimes check folds the turn. I think I played that hand fine. Gonna just call the queen 10 suited when the big blind has very nitty stats. I don't know if he is a nit or not. I mean, it's just over 54 hands, so he might not be a nit. But when the big blind's a little bit more aggro, I'm more likely to 3-bet this hand. Just get it heads up. Don't want to have to worry about him squeezing or calling and then having to play a 3-way pot out of position. I'd say I 3-bet here a lot more than I call, but I've been trying to sometimes. I don't know. When I was looking at some of my numbers in six max games, and I just play so insanely aggressive in the small blind, and like significantly more passive in the big, and I'm trying to maybe tone that down a little bit. especially in spots where the big blind is not somebody that is particularly crazy or super tough or anything like that. There's just might not be quite as much of a need as I think to always 3-bet out of the small blind. These are sort of things that I go back and forth on. Pre-flop stuff from anything from what to do with like baby pairs in the blinds or an under the gun. Whether or not I should be calling min raises with 5-6 off on the bottom right. I'll explain a little bit more about why I think it's right. I definitely check call this flop a good amount of the time. I think this is a sort of spot where I need to have some sort of check raising range and some check calling range that includes a 6 and draws in both. Because I want to be able to check call this flop a lot and I want to be able to check raise this flop some, I think having both hands in it makes a lot of sense. I know I've talked a little bit about why I think it's right to play loose in the blinds versus min raises. Part of where I'm getting this from, and I think some of the ways that I can justify it is, I know this is 6 max and this is not heads up, but using heads up no limit as a reference point makes a lot of sense in these. But I just bottom left, I decided to check raise and get it in against him. I think it's very standard play by me and maybe standard by him too. It's very heads up no limit in many ways. That if you watch some of like the top players playing heads up no limit, that's sort of, it's the best word to phrase it. It's kind of like a frontier of poker. Okay, this is like the people who are at the sort of the cutting edge. You watch something like Sauce versus Canoe at 100 or 200, or Sauce versus Isildur, or any of those guys, or Ike battling any of those guys. Now, when you see pretty much none of them playing, and it's obviously filtered down to all the lower stakes games too. When you see pretty much nobody ever playing less than like 80% VPIP in the big blind versus a min raising strategy. Now, obviously, that's versus a 100% min raising strategy, and I don't expect the buttons in 6 max to be min raising 100%. So I'm not going to call the absolute worst stuff. I'm probably not calling like 9-5 off to a min raise. But there's also a dead small blind in there. So that should widen my range a little bit. But if you're expecting your opponents to be min raising like 60% on the button or something like that, I think you can get pretty loose in the big blind and have good reason for it. Top left, pretty close spot between jamming and just calling. I'm gonna just call min raise. If he was playing like a 3xing strategy or a 2.5xing, I'd be more inclined to jam because first of all, calling just becomes a little bit less profitable. Top right, I definitely should have bet twice with my hand. I don't know why I checked the turn. So anyway, top left, he's making bigger raise pre-flop. I'm more likely to continue, or more likely to do something aggressive pre-flop. When he's min raising, I think I should play a little bit more passive here. Absolutely going to check raise this flop. King Jack on this board in this situation with this stack depth is just no brainer. Get it in. He probably has clubs when he makes that silly bet size. Close enough. Damn. Gonna check raise 5s here. So what sort of hands am I check raising in the bottom left? On this board texture, probably a lot of stuff like bottom pair, 6-7, 7-8, 6-8. Might even do some stuff like 10-8 of diamonds, things like that. And that's why I think I'm very comfortable having a check raising range that includes some sets, ace 5, ace 9, 9-5 suited, stuff like that. And then of course with all those hands, I still miss sometimes call, like I said on the other hand. That's how we mix it up. I'm considering calling the top left if he bets. Let's see what his C-bet numbers are. Well, he's giving me a very good price. I kind of think it's just a call. Button versus blinds. He probably doesn't expect me to have an ace too often. He probably thinks I would bet the river with it. I think it's just a call. I mean, obviously, I expect to lose most of the time there, but I'm getting really good pot odds. Bottom right, I'm sorry, I 3-bet and flop top set, which are always nice words to utter. Now, I'm not going to overbet in the bottom right because any of the really strong hands that he might have probably just jam if I bet smaller anyway. So I have to be more focused on how to get the most money. How to get the most money from stuff like tens, and I think I should probably just bet a little bit smaller. This guy's opening first in the cutoff 73% of the time. I think that makes ace deuce off a jam. Chop it up. This guy's steel's pretty low, so I'm just going to fold king 7. I certainly could cold 4-bet here with 7-8 suited. Not going to do it though this time. I really would like to run up a stack in this tournament in the top left. I mean, what a fun tournament to go deep in it would be, playing four-handed for 20 hours with a bunch of tournament players. This is the tournament lobby, for anyone curious. My opponent raised pre, bet the flop, and then 2x pot at the turn. Well, I'm obviously folding my hand. I like when you see something very strange like this, even if you know you're folding, sort of give it a thought and try to put your opponent what do you think he does that with. I assume he has a mixed range of something like nut flush draw, and some lower flushes and things like that. That's probably the type of range he would do that with. Top left, there's very few ways I'm not going all in here pre-flop. Bottom right, I value bet here. Damn it, I'm gonna lose top left. Jack. That's unfortunate. Bottom right, I value bet I see bet the flop. I get check raised. I call. So far, not much else to do in this hand. Turn is a little bit tricky. I think I'm going to check. I think he's bottom left also. I don't usually 3-bet. I don't really on razors with ace-9 off. That's probably too loose. I think I'm going to check the bottom right. I don't expect him to go raise check when he has a draw too often, so I don't worry too much about my hand being too vulnerable. I think he might have something better than me still, like ace-9 or something, deciding to be tricky, or a set. Very odd line for him to take. I think it looks kind of strong. I'm actually going to fold. I don't know about that. That was a really tight fold, I think. I just think a 10 is probably a pretty strong hand for his range, because I could definitely be wrong that he would not go check raise check with Jack 10 or 10-8 or something like that. He also could just have something like ace 10, king 10, queen 10. He also maybe decided to just take that weird line of the set, or the ace 9 or something like that, or 10-9. I don't see too many just pure bluffs in his range there, but I could be wrong. Maybe that was just a silly fold by me. So we have another about 15 minutes. Sorry that this tournament didn't go well for me. Let me see though if I can. There might be a second chance tournament starting. There is, but do I really want to play a $100 six-max tournament right now? The answer is probably no. Okay, I'm just going to finish this session and then go do real world things and then play later. Top right, absolute no-brainer, bet call in this spot. My opponent raised under the gun and then check raised the flop. Strange board to do it on, honestly, as an under the gun raiser. He probably. I'm not folding yet. I want to call it because I think I can potentially bluff some turn cards or river cards, and sometimes I hit an 8 or a king. And sometimes my queen or my jack is good, and he just has something like, well, first of all, sometimes he just has something like jacks, and my queen isn't at. Sometimes he says something silly like, you know, pocket fives or something. He's turning his hand into a bluff somehow. Um, Obviously, the 8 is a gin card for me. I'm not going to let my timer run down. I'm just going to go all in. I'd say that's a pretty bold bet call by him on the river. His check raise on the flop seems okay to me. I think I'd prefer just check calling. I don't think he necessarily needs to raise and turn his hand into a bluff. But he probably can get me to fold something like ace 9 or ace 10 by the river by taking that weird line, especially on a lot of runouts. So I don't really hate it. That's definitely something, though, that I see my opponent do that, and I want to make a note that he took that line with that hand. I want to know which opponents do stuff like that, because the fact is most people in 6 max no limit games are just not randomly 3-betting or randomly opening under the gun and then check raising on 6, 9, 10. It's like a pretty rare thing to see in these games. Let's get another zoom table up. So what do we do when our opponent is very deep and we have position on him? We try to punish him. That's what we do. We 3-bet a lot in position, and we do not 3-bet that much out of position. When he opens the cutoff, and I am 250 big blinds deep with him on the button, I am trying to play lots and lots of hands. Looks like there's some construction going on outside, so I'm going to close the window. Top left, I'd say my hand is just barely not good enough to squeeze with in this spot. A little bit better, I might go for it, but under the gun versus a short stack cutoff who could just stick it in with any pocket pair. It seems look, queen jack off would be a little bit too bad. Slightly better, I might go for it. I min-raised here on a gun +1. I don't know why that happened. I usually 2.5 or 3x from that spot, but I don't think it's wrong exactly to be min-raising. Top left, I just had to check call with ace 10. Obviously, on these really dry, raggedy boards, you can check call with ace high a little bit more. Now my hand just becomes a pretty clear value bet when I hit the 10 on the turn and the top card pairs in the river. Bottom left, I made my flush. Gonna value bet. Top right, I obviously should have bet the turn, but I was talking and I timed out. But it doesn't really matter that much because check calling the turn would probably be okay too. Definitely want to bet this river. later on this week, I'm gonna try to make a couple more videos doing some of the W cubes. I might do the shootout later this week. There's another 6 max tournament on Thursday that I want to do. And the same day there's also a 6 max PLO tournament. Both of those are pretty good options. I will be missing the Friday tournaments, unfortunately. But this weekend there's some really good stuff. There's a 2K on Sunday. I think there's a 1K also. I don't know when the 1K is. Yeah, there's a 2K no limit on Sunday. That's going to be massive. That'll be a lot of fun. All right, so under the gun opens top right. I have Queen 8 suited on the button. It's a pretty borderline hand for me. I almost certainly would 3-bet Queen 9 suited. Probably would call Queen 10 suited a lot of the time. Although I could definitely call both or 3-bet both. I decided just to fold this time. For the sake of videos, I should probably just always 3-bet in that spot. Versus min raise in the bottom left, I defend a King 3 suited. I think that's a no-brainer. I want to value bet now on the turn. Top left, my opponent is probably one of the better regulars of these games. Both of these guys are two of the better regulars in these games. Bright Stripe, I believe, is a star of one of my previous videos where I bet 3 streets as a bluff and got called by worse. So I think my note on him says station, but I have played with him a good amount since, and I thought he played pretty well. So I'm obviously cold 4-betting though when it gets this action to me when I have Ace King suited. We have probably another 3 or 4 minutes before I gotta wrap this video up. Hopefully some crazy things happen, because nothing has happened really yet. Bottom right versus a very small 3-bet. I'm very tempted to do something other than fold. But the problem is he has a very short stack. I only have Ace 5 suited. If my hand was a little bit better, Ace 8 suited, Ace 9 suited, I'm probably calling in that spot. I don't think there's much I can do there though. I just have to give him the pot. I'm 3-betting the under the gun razor here with Ace 7 suited. It's just a whatever spot. I don't have too much of an opinion. Ace 9, Ace 10 suited, I call there a lot. So I think 3-betting something like Ace 7 suited makes a lot of sense. Top right, guy seems to have a reasonable 3-betting percentage, so I'm going to go for it with 5-6 suited and 4-bet him. It's a hand that I can't call with, so 3-betting has its perks. I'm going to check back in the top left on Queen Jack 6, the flush draw. I don't always c-bet this flop. And my hand makes some sense to not c-bet it with, I think. Basically, I just don't have much of anything on the flop, and it's a super coordinated board that could hit him hard. So I want to sometimes check it. Definitely is not necessary. I don't necessarily need to 3-bet it or to c-bet it there. On the river, if I had bricked, I almost certainly would always bluff, get him to fold better ace highs and stuff. But now that I beat some ace highs with that 7 on the river, I beat, when he has like pocket 5s or something like that. I don't think I need to bet. I expect him to never fold that if I bet, so probably was a good check. I'm just going to bring that board up just again in case anyone didn't see. There's way less of a necessity for me to bluff when I hit that 7 on the river, even though it's 4th pair, it actually has a decent amount of showdown value. I'm going to defend bottom right with King 9 suited to a 2.5x, even though it's from the cutoff. Obviously, if it's from the button, it's not even close. Cutoff becomes slightly closer, hijack, etc. Well, this is a disadvantage sometimes of playing a live sweat. It seems like there's been very little craziness happening this session. Also, the games seem to be playing a little bit tighter right now than they usually do. Top left, I didn't c-bet with sevens on the ace-10-3 board. I could, I don't have to, and then but when I don't, and then a queen comes on the turn, I think I should pretty much continue my plan to check fold. And one of the advantages, well, there's a good hand, a good example of why sometimes that's the line I take with pocket sevens. There, is that, and why I wouldn't take that necessarily with something like 8-9 or something. Even though both are basically like completely no showdown value hands on the flop, or completely like no connection to the flop hands, and neither really has too much of a barreling potential. The fact that it can sometimes just go get checked down and I can win with sevens just makes it slightly better to sometimes check the flop with it, versus sometimes if I thought it was a close c-bet spot and I had absolutely nothing, I would frequently bet. Because at least then I have the opportunity to win the pot on the flop, whereas there's no other way to win the pot. Let's see what our opponent had when I had the sevens. Well, he had 8-9. He probably should have bet the turn. So I call the c-bet with 10-8 suited on this board. This is a situation where I think I should turn my hand into a bluff. It's not that I really think he's going to fold a jack right now. I want to get him to fold by the river. And it's just a simple fact that this board run out, or this turn card, really hurt his hand a lot more than it hurt mine. Or, the card hits my range way harder than it hits his, is what I mean to say. A jack is not a good card. I can't get him to fold a jack now. I think that was a good give up by me. I'm probably betting most river cards there. The board pairing jack, though, is not the best, because part of what I want to get him to fold is top pair, and now top pair is all of a sudden top trips, so he's going to be way less likely to fold it. If that river card was an over card, if it paired one of the lower cards, I'd be more likely to go for a bluff there. But with that card, the only advantage that pairing the jack has for me there is that I now can probably get him to fold his over pairs. But those are probably not super common compared to all the times he just has like ace-10 or something like that. Or sorry, ace-jack. Or any other jack, for that matter. Alright, so that's about it for this video. As always, let me know what you guys thought and post questions and comments in the thread. Let's finish out this hand in the bottom right. Call the 3-bet and call the c-bet on King Queen 7 with Ace Jack. My opponent checks the turn. There's only a pot size bet left, so I think betting the turn and betting the river have similar expectations of fold equity. So because of that, I'm not going to bet the turn, because I have a gut shot. I like to see the river card for free. In case he's getting tricky, I want to check the turn, give myself a chance to actually win the pot. But once he checks twice, now I think I have to go for it. I like betting kind of small here because it keeps my range wider. Keeping my range wider in this spot for a bluff is actually good, because I think now it can look like I can have a queen here. And on top of that, there's very few hands I can be bluffing with. Ace Jack or Ace 10 are pretty much it. 10 Jack obviously got there on the turn. 7x, I guess I could have 7x, but I call the 3-bet versus short stack, so I don't have too many 7x hands. And he's tanking, which means he probably has some kind of bluff catcher like pocket tens and is trying to talk himself into hero calling. Luckily for us, he didn't. I don't bet this turn card too often in this spot in the top left, but with the gut shot, the stack sizes, I think it's a fine spot to go for a bet. And I don't know if I want to bluff the river though on a brick. 7 offsuit 7 on the river. I go all in. He might just call with ace 4. So it's a tough spot, but I think betting the turn is good with 2 overs and a gut shot to the nuts. This is strange. I didn't get a hand. Well, looks like my internet is freezing at just the right time. Oh, there's my hand. Okay, so I guess that's it for this video. For deucescrack.com, this is Donnie Stern, and I'll see you guys next week.